Okay, back on this knuckle motor again. It's been a few days, so I was over trying to mock this up, but basically we're going to cut the motor mounts on this thing to get them squared up to the numbers we need. And these cases are so stinking far off, I can't believe how bad they are, but oh well. So basically these mounting bosses are not flat, they're at an angle. And then the biggest thing is they're tilted like this, side to side, like it's not a machine square here. But when you put the angle from the case over here, it's at 90 degrees. So he's at 90, like it's supposed to be. So that means this gasket surface and this plate over here are the same, and these parting lips are all the same. These are cut 90, but the motor mounts are cut at an angle like this, which are not supposed to be. And so I'm going to take a slight cut on here to get something to go by, see where things are at. But they're nowhere near where they're supposed to be. And this rear motor mount over here has got the same issue. You can see how it keeps hanging the cutter right here, but see it's not getting over it all here on this side. It's got the same problem. So this motor, these repop cases are just nothing about these things seem to be cut square, flat, or true to anything. The other problem is there's an offset difference between this side and the other side, and we're shooting for a 1.650 difference, which is your distance from this cutter to this cutter. And the problem is that we are, to get those angles not be in these cases, will be probably at least a couple inches apart, and that's not where it's supposed to be either. The other problem is there's a tilt angle, so the cylinders are at 45-degree angle, which means they're 22.5 degrees off the center. So if your motor is tilted forward or back, you'll have a plus or negative tilt to it in degrees. And Harley tends to move their motors forward a little bit to get more exhaust clearance to the back of the frame and head clearance. When you built the knucklehead motor and the flathead motor, they were really low profile and not very tall, so they had a lot of clearance in the frame, so the motors should be square in the frame. When the Panic came out as a big fat head, they tilted the motor forward a degree or two to get room for the exhaust in the back of the head. And the Shovelhead and the Evo, all those same thing, they got tilt in them to get room because Harley didn't want to change the frame, they just changed how the motor was in the frame. You don't really notice it because it's hard to see a couple degrees. So my problem is right now is I don't know what the tilt is because I can't measure the decks down there from where I'm at very consistently. So first thing I'm going to take a cut right here on the mount to see exactly how bad it is, because it's bad. And then we'll kind of get an idea where we're at. So I was measuring the difference between here and here. Now I'm going to do something different. I'm going to have a hard stop on this. And then I will adjust up and down here to get my clearance that I need. So right now, move this up a little bit. Hard stop, lock it down, and then I'll come over and cut. Okay, clearing, I dropped it. Alright, let's do some cutting and see what we get here. Oh, need some power. Power on. Three-phase power is needed to make mill work. So, alright, hopefully you can see some of this. Let's see. Zeroed everything out. We're making our first pass. It's not heating on this side at all. see how we're only cutting a little bit of the mount there. Alright. So you can see it's only cutting from here back, which means this was cut a totally different, there's a lot higher up angle to it before. And this side's not even cutting at all yet. It's got a gap on it. I'm not sure how deep that is, going to measure it, but it's definitely a lot lower than what it is here. Because we're not even touching that yet. Alright, so now I'm going to go to the other side of the case and see where we are on that side. Get stuff out of the way so I can get over there. Let's go ahead and zero that out right now. Okay, now we're on the other side of the motor. I'm going to check to see what's going on with that side. Okay, now the distance between here and here should be 1/650. Don't know yet, I got to check it. So I got to crank this thing up. So I got it zeroed right here. So you go 16 turns because 100 per turn, and then 50 thou above that. So that's what we need to do now. You get to listen to that phase converter running over there. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Getting that good. 30. Getting 40. Not getting yet either. Get my other side here too. Nope. Whoop. Get the back of the case. I got 450. About 450 it hits. Just past 450. 450 right there. Okay, that's where we're at. And on. See if it hits within 10,000. It hits. Right at 450. Seems like it's more than 450 now. 452. 457 is not hit. 454 it hits. Turn the noisemaker off. Okay, so you can see we're hit right here. You can see it's at an angle because it's hitting more on this outside edge than the inside edge. Okay, that was 1,472 3/4. So we're at 454. .454 is where we hit the back of the case. Okay, so this one's hitting on this side, and this one's hitting on the outside, so that means the case is tilted up too far this way, so we have too much tilt like this. Now the problem is, to correct that, you're going to increase the height distance between these two mounts when you do that, to take that out. So instead of being 1.650s, which is what his frame was measured at, so he was 1.650 is what he wanted. He was actually 645. I averaged it out to a higher number. So that's the number he thinks he wants. So that's the difference in height between this mount and the other mount. So he took his frame and he put a plate across his frame rail, his rear motor mount frame, and came forward across the front mount and measured the distance. It was 1/650. That's your offset between your front boss and your rear boss in your case. Now I don't know what the tilt is right now. I got to try to figure out what that's going to be. I have no idea. It's hard to measure things when you're upside down. Yeah, real difficult. So that's the next thing they try to figure out. Now, how much of a space are you supposed to have underneath your mount between a panhead frame and a knuckle frame? Some people say 3/8 of an inch. Some people say 300 thousandths. Some say 1/4 inch. V-twin, I think they were running about 300, as I recall. About 5/16 roughly in their frames. I think is what I read someplace. So most of the time the frames are, when you look in the books, it's either 1.950, 970, 980, 990, or 2-inch. Aftermarket, people like 2-inch, even number. Harley don't like even numbers. I cut my stuff at 980. I think that's where it should be. It's kind of an average between the 950 and 990. Most time the shovelhead books, it's 990 you see in the books in the 70s and stuff. You get back in the older books, there's some 950 stuff in there I've seen on pan frames. So they vary all over the place. All I know is between a knuckle frame and a pan frame, you have a spacer that goes in there. As I recall, when I looked at the number up on the V-twin, that spacer was 300 thou thick. So if we were at 650 here, that means it's that'd be 370 difference, which is close to 3/8, 375. And I've seen that number used a lot also. So we're kind of in between those two numbers slightly, but we're closer to that number than the 300 number. So anyway, these are all numbers that mean something to somebody, but when I'm cutting the case, I cut to what the customer wants his frame at. His frame measured that. So roughly his frame would require a 3/8 of an inch spacer between a knuckle motor and if you put it into a shovel frame or a pan frame, Evo frame. And that's a number that people have out there online a lot too. But the problem is his case wasn't cut for that, because you can see how it's not square this way and it's not square this way. So it's way the hell off no matter what you do. Now, the difference between this one and this one, I'm not sure. If you had to jack the case up and measure that, what that number would come in at. But I bet you it's going to be pretty high, because that's a pretty good difference in angle there. And this is why these mounts get broken off frames. Not on frames, they get broken off the cases because things aren't square. Alright, interruptions phone. Be back.